All right. We get this Splice show on the road here. Thank y'all for coming to the July Splice. Dedicated fans and poets and writers and artists. It's excellent to see your faces in this sweaty summer heat. We have two poets this evening. The first, Hoang Tran, I will introduce here in a second. The second, Madison, will read after Hoang. Hoang Tran is a multidisciplinary artist currently living in New Orleans by way of Orlando. Multidisciplinary, multimediality, transmediality, intermedia. In the Poetics and Theory of the Intermedia, Dick Higgins mentions the word intermedia appears in the writings of Samuel Taylor Coleridge in 1812 in exactly its contemporary sense, to define works which fall conceptually between media that are already known. Higgins also notes, some may ideate that the avant-garde conveys for specialists only. Consequently, using the term intermedia is a way to open the field, to relax into possibilities for art. A hallmark of Tran's intermedia work is that it itself relaxes into possibilities. The work feels comfortable, surprising, absurd, humorous, serious, intelligent, vigorous, and wrought from a clear, critical perspective. It has a syncretic simultaneity that epitomizes intermedia art, and the art sprawls. Conceptual and concrete work as a vessel for cultural analysis, soundscape as dynamic canvas, technologies that interrogate new traditions, digital tools reimagining cultural symbols, and simple video games on hyper-contemporary experiences. One of which I highly recommend is called Sometimes I Feel Like Keanu Reeves, where the player has to dodge rejections from submittable, and once you die, you must choose whether or not you'd like to submit again. You can find links to Tran's work in Posit, the Brooklyn Review, ANMLY, New Delta Review, Tagvverk, Always Crashing, and Diode on his website, namhtran.com. With Splice's own Henry Goldkamp, Tran also co-edits Tilt, a journal of intermedia poetics. Hoang Tran's Intermedia is a testament to the power of multidisciplinary art in navigating and articulating the complexities of modern existence. The work engages in a continuous dialogue with our global landscape, making him a distinctive voice in contemporary art. Tonight, this voice will be performed a little differently than usual at Splice. Hoang, having just moved to New Orleans 2-3 weeks ago, and gotten a job in the service industry, could not get off work without retribution of being fired. So he's created an intermedia experience for his performance tonight, and we will dim the lights and start the show.
Hey guys, it's Nam. I hope everyone is happy, healthy, and have had a lovely Saturday so far. I really wanted to make it tonight, but as you guys can see from the empty space below, that I was unfortunately unable to pull some strings regarding my work schedule since I just moved from Orlando, so I'm still trying to figure some things out. That being said, I've been a huge fan of the Splice poetry series ever since I first came across it. I want to say in like 2022, I think. And I've seen every single episode of every season, which I know sort of makes it sound like a reality TV show or something like The Real Housewives, but all that to say that I've had a total blast so far, just like sort of following along and listening to people share their work. Even though I'm not physically there to share the space with you guys tonight, I am in spirit. So at any point in tonight's performance, just look up at one of the corners of Saturn Bar and like imagine a really tan Asian guy, and I'll be there. But all jokes aside, I just wanted to give a massive thanks to Henry, Sean, and Rodrigo for putting me on and just like seeing something in my work, because as a pretty shy and introverted person, I don't really do things like this often, like live readings, and the nature of having work seen only online is like I don't get to see the live feedback from people, which I guess is what's going on now. But despite this, I had loads of fun making the work that you'll be seeing tonight, and I hope everyone enjoys it. And to sort of set the tone for the work, I wanted to begin with an epigraph from Lamont Young,
hey, that's
who was a American composer, musician, and performance artist who was a central figure in the avant-garde movement. And the epigraph reads, "One of the aspects of form that I have been very interested in is stasis, the concept of form which is not so directional in time, not so much climatic form, but rather form, which allows time to stand still. And so often we think of stasis as in like not doing anything, like being in one place. But I approached it in terms of like taking a step back and being still in the moment and like analyzing the situation before taking action, as to make sure every action taken is the correct one. Because I know, being an impulsive person, that sometimes I can act too quickly, and then in hindsight I sort of wish that I had slowed things down a bit and just like really taking like deeper breaths and sort of taking a look at all my options instead of just like following the first one that came to mind. I think setting intentions from the jump is such a crucial part of life, and knowing sort of like the why behind your choices just makes every choice that you make so much more meaningful. But yeah, I think that about wraps it up for what I wanted to say tonight. And I think I can speak on behalf of Madison when I say that it just means the absolute world to both of us that you guys came to hear us read and perform. And knowing the work that Madison does, I know that you guys are in for something really special tonight. So yeah, I'm just gonna leave off with that, and I really look forward to meeting and connecting with you guys in person soon. And sit back, relax, and enjoy the show, hopefully. Thank you guys so much, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Alright, peace out.
Man, it's dark as hell in here.
Yo, for real.
Like I straight up can't see jack.
Dog, tell me about it.
That's just how life goes, I guess.
Huh?
What the hell you mean, huh? Haven't you heard of yin and yang?
I haven't listened to them in forever. My favorite was Bedroom Boom, that shit slaps.
Not the yin yang twins, you doofus. I mean yin and yang as in black and white, heavy and light, day and night, you know, like.
I freaking love Cuddy.
Dude, same. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is that just because things are scary right now, it doesn't mean they'll always be like this. Better, brighter days are sure to come. You just gotta be patient is all.
Promise.
Yeah, boy.
Guess all we can do now is wait and hope for the best.
Facts.
It's so hard to do when the poet is not here, but give it up one more time for Nam. It's my absolute pleasure to introduce our next poet. Hey, good, how are you? Good, great. Welcome, thanks for coming. Right on time. I hope you will not judge me when I admit that until very recently, the term grotesque ultimately was deferred in my peabod of a brain as a fancy way of saying, ew. While the etymology goes back to the Italian for grotto, which stemmed from the Latin for crypt, or in the cave, what's of interest is the glomming on of the idea of the comic, a figuration in such fanciful disarray of the animal, the human, the natural, that perhaps the grotesque image offers a pang of hope amidst the ridiculous turmoil laid out in front. After all, by the mid-19th century, a grotesque was to describe a French type of circus clown whose comic improvisations embellished what was basically a display of acrobatic skill. This is ultimately the start of what we know of the circus today: juggling, tumbling, rope dancing, the varietal sight gag, etc. Thus, the grotesque displays a motion, a tumble, a splat, containing the comic and the tragic in one bodily glimmer. Madison McCartha, to my mind, is one of a long line of linguistic acrobats that at once estranges and familiarizes their audience with their own impersonal sideshow, equipped with a sleight of hand that enables them to, quote, hide a gem in a germ. It's a toss-up between the hard and precious versus the fluid and microcosmically sick, a textural and intellectual freak show. In their debut collection, a long sequence poem, FREAKOPHONE WORLD, asks of our eyes, quote, you think you are a freak of a freak? I am the irradiate landlord of freaks. Undoubtedly, McCartha delights in grotesquely glitching the image sets of basic English. No line ever relying on the idols of cliche or received phraseology. Each occult coinage totally their own, somehow populating the paradoxical city on a page of natural skyscrapers growing from the field of Aimé Césaire's concept of negritude, which he himself summarizes simply as, quote, a resistance to the politics of assimilation in his discourse on colonialism. Of course, this is a gross understatement. Ooh. On the brilliance, perhaps irradiance even, an impact of Césaire's concept, one which Jerome Rothenberg and Pierre Jaurès correctly position as, quote, our culminating modern movement, end quote, in terms of 20th century poetics and their massive anthology undertaking Poems for the Millennium. It's important to note Césaire goes on to clarify, quote, that everyone has his own negritude. Indeed, McCartha twerks and toys, tragedy and comedy, remember, their own version of defiance. Quote, this translucent chub poking through my spook smear, spookscape, ghastly at once there and not there, imminently charged with the bloody remainder of oppressive policy and lust for power the world over by systems still well rooted in place, if rusting in its late stage hinges. As McCartha begins in part 1 of FREAKOPHONE, if you're hungry for the end, then hello. Is McCartha's speaker a megaphone, a microphone, the waffle iron quality of them both? Calliopes from its oracular hinterland, quote, my million tongues coming up. The speaker transmutates themselves across species, genus, or the, quote, hidden order, as stated by the book's epigraph of Edouard Glissant. Much like the derogatory freaks are tucked away, out of sight in their tent, often a population of disabled persons in uncomfortable, borderline impossible living conditions. As one circus scholar writes of them, on stage, freak shows exploited the continuity between life and performance by having people with disabilities perform everyday tasks. A person with no arms or legs lighting a cigarette, conjoined twins dancing, singing, and turning cartwheels, lobster boy tying knots. Likewise, utilizing the knotted hyperdiction in terms of schizospittle and lunar leak, McCartha finishes the poem with a spasmodic conditional of if, and the invisibility of a supposedly required then. This is no spoiler alert to frame how the book-length poem finishes, as the manuscript is already rotted. Reading this book It's as if you can see the hands that hold it decay before your very eyes, a matter of a trick of time, the inevitable rot which is holstered inside the flesh, a future clarified through McCartha's tumble set of lexicography. As if to say, step right up and guess how many people in this room will one day die. If FREAKOPHONE WORLD registers on the analog, then their forthcoming book, The CRYPTODRONE Sequence, acts as an extension into the digital. The bread and circuses of Roman distraction at our fingertips, racing along biometric sensors, quote, in the same fetid hole, sucking your data from the wet site. Still expounding on the McSweeney-esque diction, the polyphonic asides of Douglas Kearney, the iffy, if not dubious character of the CRYPTODRONE speaker floats among the paginated technology where permissions can be added or removed. Marshall McLuhan, the media theorist. As information itself becomes the largest business in the world, data banks know more about individual people than the people do themselves. The more the data banks record about each one of us, the less we exist, end quote. So again, the compounding violent ghost of so-called civilized history repeats itself. McCartha. By spookfall, it's CRYPTODRONE who plays the flute. Like it or not, it seems we've all been caught dancing in the mirror. Snap twice, states the FREAKOPHONE speaker. That's the time it takes for fools to die alone. But before the flash in the pan gets its spark, before the sight gag gets its eye, let's clap a lot, live a little, and freak out. It's Madison McCartha, everyone.
Hi, everyone. That was a really humbling, really wonderful introduction. Thank you, Henry, and thank you, Nam, for your performance. It's incredible. I'm still thinking about it. Mostly, I'm going to read from the CRYPTODRONE sequence. And I'll try to, there isn't going to be too much multimedia, except for maybe some sounds. I'll try to get through this mic here. Can you hear me okay? Okay. So I have like half an hour to do this, and so what that means is that if you need to get up, I get it. But also I'm reading some pieces that I think are surprisingly vulnerable, given the content of the piece, of the poem, the long poem. And yeah, I'm excited to share it with all of you. So this is all from the CRYPTODRONE sequence. No single media event walks alone. On the eve of civil war, when CRYPTODRONE begins to chirp in the war prism topography, anxious, colloidal, disjunct in the microdrama. Is there an economic violation, too filthy to recapitulate, third executive finger still in his basement vector rectum? All geothermal threats emit electromagnetic radiation. Through a special gland, CRYPTODRONE perceives this radiation as architecture, granular, newly adorned in the affluence of others. Digging through the trash, in the infraspec morsel, you can glass the cache of our parole. When the one who spits in my mouth is gone, compassion particles rush in, if I survive. When multiple authentication databases merge into federated identities, a net loss occurs where CRYPTODRONE is either no one or he is nation. If the privilege of a user changes, or a hive trace for one instant sniffs out, and media event CRYPTODRONE refuses to chirp, permissions can be added or removed. This hypermediacy demands the innermost devastation of a word, interdictory, screwed up, the anxious serenity of our trembling world, single fibrous curl, shut up in a blonde amber, one-time cipher must be discarded or destroyed, which hurts, exiting a self, always ready to be mediated. By spookfall, it's CRYPTODRONE who plays the flute, twerp who cannot be cut or burned, wet or withered, strips laying face down on the pavement. When scar topography wants to be touched in the invisible, a skin chalk crests, so CRYPTODRONE can cross into your network, hairless, filthy, a narco-punk bot tremor. When sharing a host in the contagion zone, install my blue threat checkpoints along the doors and windows, each plastic iris shaking at the stem tip. We didn't want to get hurt again, but it's as simple as using the wooden end of a broom or scraping tool. Penetration testing means a programmed, usually automated series of attacks administrators carry out on their own network. Before CRYPTODRONE can be very rich or famous, CRYPTODRONE must string the geothermal threats along a neural mesh. If the mother is a threat, then the fetus becomes a target. CRYPTODRONE indexes in the infection network. When a petroleum gel resists arrest on fabric, if the president authorizes, it's CRYPTODRONE who sucks the testimony from the image, from a single pink rose bobbing below. If CRYPTODRONE had remained poverty-stricken, he might have remained, even now, in the same fetid hole, sucking your data from the website. Zero form marks the opening of a space where CRYPTODRONE stays a beggar's child forever. When CRYPTODRONE extracts itself, a secret entrance blooms, making your network vulnerable to attacks. When CRYPTODRONE arches its back to come, all data originating outside the network will be treated as at a single threat sensitivity. You arrest the holes I'd forgotten how to forgive, and my nylon ghost removes its curved perspex weave, a strap of code planted, a glory in the dark. Could it be that I already died and didn't notice? My bluest vein, pinkest palm wrinkle, sensing your gaze from the other side of the border. CRYPTODRONE feels a breach more vulnerable than old trash, a witch quiver that night taking many shapes. Once you've been authenticated, the system uses you to determine your bounds. Like everything else, this process has been automated. So listen up. From now on, this worm who stole the spotlight speaks. Self-replicating code carrying, no dangerous payload, erasing, no witness. Chirping in the velvet air until the network strings me back. A gold strap jerked out of a voice far and far. Merest hiss in a flower voice. If you loved me, I would have lasted one more day. The president's desire isn't that I kill, but transmute your death into an opaline light. Watching through the mullion, daily life contains within itself the abuse of daily life. Because CRYPTODRONE cares, he untethers caring. Behind enemy lines, a cloud pattern spits my cryptopod into a variable terrain. My copperhead glint, shot down like a stray, if I go ballistic. CRYPTODRONE burns as both an insect and a sound. Barest magnolia spark, I tried feeding, I tried. From the dusk above, tearing away the branches for the shot, thermonuclear trace I fold to see, all winter, what felt like years. CRYPTODRONE perceives and flows a registry of disallowed destinations. Except, you don't see me at all, do you? An iodine flitting through, the narrow compass of a chamber. learning to love myself. The first step is breaking out in a parallel word. If CRYPTODRONE terminates in a forbidden terrain, his body stripped and detained, visa waiver denied, an operator tests my inner oil with a finger, where my destination can be discerned, and every threat injected with a sensitivity label. Eyes only, officers only, detain while attempting to enter only, execute on site only. Hiding in a germ, CRYPTODRONE feels but cannot touch. An eye, alas, degenerates. If I gets inside, a war-wedding eye golds, where CRYPTODRONE begins and ends. If I, a bomb, enter an emerald, exit you, love, eliminate to speak. A weird, a vector marches through. The eye, already a country, fastens to measure. The many tensions, a police threat, a glamour, surveying from its agate. My initials destroy, enter and seek. If I in the stop key begin to feel, understand, if an inside extracts a threat, a self, from one arrested listening in, the dark goings go, the try anyway, from an exit light you, unequal is, begins. Crystallize yourself in jewels to survive heuristic detection. Filthy as a star under the administrator's bailiwick. A heuristic means a rule or behavior. CRYPTODRONE exhibits a scum suddenly accessing a privileged domain, as a frost on the lashes of your eyes. Cross-site scripting can be a delicate exploit. Once a virus starts talking server to server like a peer, instead of scum, unpredictable distortions can arise. Born stateless, CRYPTODRONE has no country of his own, but I'm not going to tell you who he was. Sneaking up to feed, a worm lighting a thread in multiple darks. To unlearn fabricated attacks, provoke the enmity of the state, as a plume who withstood the wave yet wouldn't break. So go ahead and cry. This isn't a hustle. I offer my eyes to the wind, my face and ears of blood, the rustle in a field draws. Because the president doesn't like surprises, my iodine maps the strata of privileged domains, a chalk flashing a grid along the gray. Most wired communication systems are considered bound, but when a fever green floods the presidential septum, CRYPTODRONE possesses a fang-like illumination. A gold of poetry ripens, I promise, in the equally real globe. When CRYPTODRONE is forbidden from flying below, a secular white, contagion yellow, distinct desires I wanted correspond. To call them, spectrograph a higher world, in rebellion orange, illuminated red, a history of severe, in the chevelure palette, each threat plainly paroled, crosshatch pink under the hunter state's redword pinch. Getting bit by a cipher means, for CRYPTODRONE, being ready to die for love, a polypropylene orange, percussing over the green. To spoof a return, the deep wood lily holds a cache no administrator can touch, a stone blue pulsing in the semaphore dark. If I, a glimmer, the circuit above returns, while the hypodermic air watches for our demise, how should I act, wagging my finger from the dust? How's everyone doing?
Gotta wash down that dust.
If the president tries to touch me again, sometimes a single threat is enough to save my life. A bronze emanation, waking in a field, as an asphodel broken by the right trace. A wet zone no bigger than a palm only. I won't cry for the master key. For CRYPTODRONE to be placeless, borderless, they must first be displaced. In a kill chain, a pulse of pomelo's inner white. In a wormhole environment, CRYPTODRONE can never see you, what the U signifies except in a delusional way. Every step the president takes, a murmur rises to the surface we overwrite to survive. Scanning ahead, an indigo bursts until the administrative hiss radiates from a retina. I take my second-hand rags and wipe, the jewel in my navel, repairing the pain in threads. Because a double spooks the world, each CRYPTODRONE carries the germ of a life worth saving. But to imagine the life, no president ordinates. My cipher key arches into a ring, each thread a gem, spun through a voice. But don't think you'll hear this ring before you die, because you won't. More than half of US citizens carried a non-soluble burden, would get so worked up, living for others, as a blip a bunker drone pours, stripping a task for you and you alone. There are many false choices, pressing into the grid. You can feel the grain of being watched. Every choice a rod of light against your back and thigh. It's cozy, staring the path, easy as being crushed. A soft spy, recording your touch under the administrator's palette. To slip the binary, flex an error until it gleams. A wedge, delicate as the root pigment, splitting the domain. From this loss, a new CRYPTODRONE can emerge. Jittering tear, wrung from a circlet. The royal good cream of being my own. I'm beginning to understand you. Wherever you are, you make me disappear, already disappeared. Because keyhole satellites cloak themselves using a mirrored structure. Could this be the beginning of my life, or the end? Despite myself, I want everything just right. Each armored cupola, like money in a palm, so long as I descend. When a missile strikes the ground, before anyone can move, I change the president like a doll. The cool air crisp against his chest. If CRYPTODRONE could think about the job once, she'd disappear. The yellow gold stalk in a mince ruin. Refuse to do a job once and you're through. A spit of blue arching up a wire. I had a record, the things I've done. That's me, the software system used to design and coordinate the world's supply chains, replacing warehouses and workers with icons and tables, checkboxes and pop-ups. My view of the supply chain is entirely abstract. There are some deaths, even my own, who go unpunished, through a window shutter's green interval. Logistics systems perform as assemblages of maps, surveillance footage, and customs forms, but we're also symphonies of beeps and cries. At these moments, I doesn't matter. Cryptodronology means the study of unknown, legendary, or extinct drones, whose existence or survival remains unsubstantiated. The drones studied within this field are called cryptids, The crypto prefix comes from the Greek kryptos and means being concealed, not visible, or not apparent. One theory that might explain a cryptid's undetectability might be these organisms undergo sophisticated and long-lasting cryptobiotic states. In ecology, cryptobiosis means the practice of living in concealed habitats or cavities. Biologically speaking, cryptobiosis refers to a dormant and resistant state without visible signs, remaining this way until conditions permit. A return to my life, as foxes in another land, before the president cuts the power, my vinyl green sight, twirling in the dark. Going it alone, without protection, the state's brittle green love, my life, my former life, astern disappearing down the causeway, looking for a new center. I'm not actually gone, though in part I am already. Choosing the right parallel, to think I would beg for my job, my life, since CRYPTODRONE speaks from an unseen present, or my last breath on earth as a CRYPTODRONE begins.
Keep it going for Madison McCartha. That was amazing. Even though Madison has just given us the definition and the etymology of CRYPTODRONE, I couldn't help but think when I was reading their manuscript of crypt, oh, that poetic sort of enunciation and droning and the sort of coffin, oh, death. And that now we have a very intimate Splice, yeah? Like, it's July in New Orleans. It's a tight-knit group, as Sean already said, the diehards. And we're dying hard in here. It's hot outside. Death is imminent. No matter who we are, we're mortal. And there's something about that that I feel is very much a tangible thing. And when you have a crypt or something is encrypted, then we have something that needs a cipher. And the poets are that cipher, that translator of language, that magic language into something else that enters the ears and changes your life. And we're here in the low-lit, diviest of dive bars, Saturn bar. We're on another planet. And we will enter, surely, it's still light out, we will enter out into the real, so-called real world. And it's a simulation. And it will be like coming out of a crypt. And I hope that, I know, because you're the type of people that would walk into a crypt to hear poets read, whether it's through the body or through the screen, and let them be your cipher, that you will maybe see the world a little bit differently when you come out. I have missed, to be on a personal note, I've missed 2 splices. This is my first one back. It's like the first ever splice I ever missed, and then I had to miss another one. And I'm so glad to be back with y'all. And I just want to thank you again for coming, for listening, and for being so attentive. And we love you, and we hopefully will see you next month. Thank you so much. This is Splice.